All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. This is Abhijit. You are watching Rationable, and today we have a very interesting Rationable interview with two wonderful people who have been doing a lot of work fighting psychics. And actually, Mark has been a psychic. So Susan Gerbic, Mark Edward are here. Hey, thanks so much for joining me, guys. I got very intrigued when talking to Rob Palmer about psychics. So, starting off, Mark, I heard
Yes,
you were a psychic at one point of time, or if is that the right terminology that I can use?
I was what I like to call an undercover psychic because I was not a believer and I was on the board of a Skeptic magazine the same time I was working as a psychic. So
Oh,
basically, my idea was to scam the scammers and infiltrate into that market and play their game and using my techniques as a mentalist and magician to convince them that I was the real deal. I went into it with eyes wide open, and I ran screaming out of it after I got enough information to write my book, Psychic Blues. Learned a lot, and there was no other way to do it but to become one of them.
wow. So I this is like psychic espionage.
Yes, it's undercover. It was all done the wink and a nod, and playing both sides of the fence was not always easy.
I'm sure.
Skeptics did not like it, but that's the way I figured I had to do it, and it worked.
Nice. So, do you learn this sort of stuff? How to be a psychic somewhere, or
Yeah,
you pick it
I
up?
mean,
Or
it's not like you go to a school and they teach you, 101 or anything. It's mostly
it's
experience.
so weird.
You have to get out and do it. And I
So,
was lucky enough to have some really good teachers and some people who took an interest and shared their secrets with me. So
oh,
that made it so that I was able to, it's a performance. It's just like magic or singing
mhm.
or dancing or anything else. So if you get a good teacher who can teach you how to sing, what may seem impossible in the beginning it becomes possible with time. So it didn't
Wow.
happen overnight.
Yeah, of course, I'm sure. And I watched a show with Darren Brown, which was about faith healers, where he actually
Yeah,
trained somebody to become a faith healer
yeah,
and actually managed to sell it to the crowd, and everybody believed him, even after he confessed that he was not a faith healer. People still
yeah.
believe he
That's
could
the
do it.
problem is you can tell people that you just made it all up and they think you're just trying to cover up for being clairvoyant. So,
Amazing. When you guys are amazing. What are the undercover techniques of being a psychic? How
well,
do you
it's
be
like
a mental?
asking a farmer, how do you farm?
Okay, that's
You
okay.
know
It's
what
a
I
very
mean?
broad
You have
question.
to be very specific. I mean, I can give you answers to those questions, but it's a pretty big area to just say, here's the main secret is you make bold statements as if they're facts.
Yeah.
That's one of the big keys right there.
So the two of the things which I had with my conversations with, oh, by the way, guys, Psychic Blues, I'll put a link in the description below if I can find one for in Indian Amazon.
Yeah. Get
Definitely
the audiobook instead.
get the audiobook instead. Absolutely.
Yeah, the audiobook is actually an expanded version of the original
Oh,
manuscript.
wow.
So,
All
and
right.
it's
I'm
read
getting
by
that for
me.
sure.
So you'll get more out of it if you get the audiobook.
Fantastic. I'll do that. And I advise everybody to do that as well. We'll get into much deeper detail than what we managed to in this conversation for sure. Of course, a couple of big things that I spoke with Richard Saunders about and with Rob Palmer was, of course, the concepts of hot readings and cold readings. So
Mhm.
those the two of the biggest tools of the trade, would you say?
No, I think, yeah, the biggest tool of the trade is just faking sincerity.
No.
Yeah.
But there
You
would
can
be a
if you can fake sincerity, then you've got it made. But I mean, cold reading is number one. You have to be able to do a good cold reading, and then as you progress, if you need to get further into the higher or lower echelons of psychic, that you learn how to do hot reads, and then you can be really accurate. People believe you're absolutely the real deal, and all you're doing is just getting pre-show information on your subjects.
so that is a hot
Also,
reading. Sorry?
yeah, and
Yeah.
also I think that another thing that we forget about, but one of the reasons why psychics appear to be real is because, especially on TV, is because of the editing. And Mark's always said that the editor is the real magician. That's the real
Oh.
person who's doing
Yeah, if you're
everything.
watching something on TV, you don't know how much has been left
Right.
on the cutting room floor.
Right. So that's a really important part of them appearing to be the real deal. Also, just darn coincidence. I mean, that happens. Things happen. The psychic might say something and it might be exactly what, they throw out a name that might seem a little unusual, like Alice or, Jonathan, or I don't know, something that seems a little, and that might be the trigger that hits the whole.
Bottom line is the client or the sitter wants the psychic to be right. So
That's
they will make connections for the
Right.
psychic. Like, oh yeah, my father had a friend who lived across the street from his brother-in-law whose name was Jonathan.
Right.
And the thing is, it's that conversation which really gets things moving, right? Once you start that interaction, the person is going to start picking things out from that conversation and using them as
Yeah.
more fuel to kind of develop the
Yeah,
story.
you're constantly course correcting to try and get to the weakest spot you can in the client. What their real problem is, you try and get to that as fast as possible. And then you get the hook in, then you say, I see this, or I'm feeling this. And then that's it, really.
This actually reminds me of this guy I met. So this is the one and only hike I've ever been on, and I didn't even manage to complete it. So I can't say it was much of a hike. But about halfway through, I'm going up this hike. This is about 3 hours in or something like that. And I'm wiped, and I'm sitting and I'm drinking juice and I'm eating food and I'm sitting around, and I see this, and this is in India. So it's kind of surprising when you see a young Caucasian man peeling peas in the corner of a hut. And we kind of looked over. It's like, so hi, what are you doing here? So he's like, oh, I study palmistry in this nearby university. And I come out here and I peel peas for these guys and I help them out. And, I carry stuff up and down for the shop. And I was like, oh, that's very nice of you. So you're studying palmistry. That's very interesting. So he said, I didn't know you could get a degree in that sort of thing. But
I did not
in
either.
India, you
That's
can.
crazy.
So you guys need to come down here. It's going to be some fun.
That's scary.
I'd love to see what the parchment that they give them looks like. I bet it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. And so, of course, this friend of mine who I was with, she said, oh, would you read our palms? And he said, yeah, I'm not very good at it, but I can give it a shot. So he sits down with her and he looks at the palm and he's like, oh, this is very interesting. So you're not from around here, which is she's Singaporean. I was like, yeah, shit. So they're having a conversation and he comes out of this. She's like, oh my God, that's so accurate. How could you guess that? And so I'm looking at her and I'm like, okay, so she goes through this and she was like, wow, he's good. You're good. I'm like, okay, all right, you can do me now. Have a look. And he looked at my palm and I didn't say a word. I didn't give him any fuel, no ammunition, no fuel, nothing. And he kind of looked around and he's like, and after a couple of minutes kind of floundering, I was like, I don't know, buddy, you tell me. And after that, he was like, I don't know, I can't really read you very well. I think we're done for today, but guys, all the best.
Yeah.
All the best. I think only good things.
Yeah, I know. So
Yeah, that's
that
how it
was
works.
very interesting. That whole conversation, which kind of keeps it going.
Yeah, 100% of it. Yes.
And it's not just conversation, it's
Body language.
body language. And if you go like this, like what? Or you nod your head yes, then you're on the right track. You just keep going until the person says, no, not really. Then you course correct again. And sooner or later you're gonna get to the sore spot.
And it's amazing how I have members of my own family who have sworn that they've gone to palm readers and astrologers and they have been told things which are uncannily accurate.
One of our favorite lines that we hear wherever we go is, there's no way in the world the psychic could have known that.
Right. I hear that
And we're
all
like,
the time.
Oh, yes.
And it's a challenge. If it's a person I know who's hot reading, I'm like, I'm on it. Let's go for it. And I'll go into their Facebook page or Google them or, find an obituary they're mentioned in. And then you start throwing it back at them. You're like, oh, I see this. And then they shut up and they block you usually on
Whoa.
Facebook. They'll say,
So what happened?
because they don't want to know. They don't want to hear that.
There's this is in person. This must have been like on a call or on a video chat or something of that sort. Is that what you're talking about?
I just had one happen just 2 days ago where a woman came. There's a Facebook group. There's 2 Facebook groups devoted to trying to get your money back from this one specific psychic that I've been like following for a while, Thomas John. And the people will come in there and they'll post stuff. Like one said, she just said a couple days ago, I had the most amazing reading from Thomas John. He was so accurate. I said, and I responded to her and said, so can we listen to the recording? And she says, oh no, it's only for me and my friends and family. And I'm like, then we don't have no evidence. And she, oh, but it's none of your business. I'm like, well, then why are you posting here? And it's just like, why are you doing that? And she says, oh, it was all information he couldn't have gotten anywhere else. So I went onto her Facebook page and she has all these old photos of her mom who was in the army. Her mother was in Vietnam and on and on. And I said, oh, did he get this? Did he get that? Did he name this person? And then I went, she hadn't posted her mom's name, but her husband had posted the obituary for the mom, his mother-in-law. So I just went from one Facebook page to another. People think that they didn't post anything. Well, you're connected to your whole family on Facebook. It's not hard to go from one to another. Eventually, you're going to find somebody who has an open Facebook page who's not so secretive. And there's a search feature on Facebook. Most people don't realize that. You can type a word like mother, father, obituary, death, Mother's Day, graduation. There's terms you can put, or birthday, in the search Facebook page. And you instantly have posts going back from the beginning of the time that they started the Facebook page. It's really easy to hot read people whenever you have them on social media.
Wow. So how did she respond? Did she just block
She blocked me.
So she didn't want to.
So, she's the one that started the thread. But see, what I do is I always screenshot everything because I know they're very likely to go away. So what I did is, so she got rid of the thread. So I turned around and took all the screenshots I made and I put them back on the Facebook page. I said, since she's decided to delete everything, let's continue this conversation using her. And I just kept putting the screenshots up. And then she was really upset, I think. People were telling me she was upset. Because then I was posting the obituary and I was posting more information. And I told her, I said, I know you aren't reading this, but maybe somebody will repost it. I said, look, you're grieving. Your mother just died in May. That's just a few months ago. And I know your mother just died in May because I just read it off of your mom's obituary. I said, she looks like she was an amazing person. You had a close relationship with her right till the end. I said, this is what grief is like. And we all grieve in different rates. So you have to remember that there's always somebody out there waiting to take your money. And there's always somebody willing to prey on you and I mean, pray, P-R-E-Y, not pray, P-R-A-Y, P-R-E-Y, that will take advantage of the fact that you are grieving. I said, I think my suggestion to you is to stay away from these psychic mediums and to probably seek out, maybe a grief counselor or something, or maybe a very wise person in the family who is compassionate you can talk to, because you're obviously still feeling grief. And then I kind of played it up by saying, I'm sure you probably wouldn't have fallen for something like this if you weren't in grief. I try to make her sound like she was a more critical thinker than that. And she just happened to fall for this, which I don't know. She probably falls for it all the time. I don't know. You never know. But I reached out to her that way, and we'll see if she sees the posts or something. But
one can hope.
So that happens. Sometimes they don't block me. And sometimes we end up having a very good conversation. And then that's where you really get into it with them. And you say, they finally come down to saying, maybe this person is a fraud, but are they all frauds? They asked me that. Have you ever run into somebody who was real?
Which leads me to the question, has there ever been some sort of an example of a reading that you haven't been able to explain how they managed to get that kind of information, or something inexplicable, like you can't wrap your head around exactly how that worked? Has there been anything of that sort which has ever come across?
Let's see. I mean, usually it's just, it's a trick. Somehow it happened. The one I'm thinking of that was Mark and I went to an event a live event, and the psychic was Matt Fraser, and he pulled up a person out of the audience, and he said, "I bet you have a photo of them on your phone, and it's your screen." And that is the person that I'm talking to right now. First, he said it was a young man or something like that. He obviously had connected to them, and then he made it sound like and then he said it was on your screen. And I thought that was really good, because unless he had seen the picture and talked to them ahead of time and said, "Who is that?" what probably happened is either probably not Matt Fraser, but probably one of his minions or somebody. Because, you're mingling. You're in this room. You're in a long line. And if you're in a line of people and you're waiting to get in and somebody turns to you and says, "Who are you hoping to get a hold of?" And you say, "My brother, this is him." And they show your phone. They're like, "This is my brother. He died of cancer, or he was in a car accident. And I keep this picture to remember him all the time." They could have said that to somebody in the audience or somebody in line, and that's how they got the information. But boy, it looks smooth. When he did it right in person, he pulled them up and sent it. I was like, "Ooh, that's good. That's really good."
Because I'm sure they'd have somebody who might have been maybe sitting behind them or standing behind them, like you said. And even if while they were talking to other people, like she kept looking at her phone and maybe just looking at his picture and kind of these little signals give off a lot of information.
Right. When
So-
I've done some of the events in person, as a woman, you become very friendly to everybody. And what you do is you get there early and you start talking to the people all around you sitting. "Who are you here to hear? Who are you trying to get a hold of? Who are this? Who are that?" You get all that information. You're talking. Anybody can hear. And the best place to get the information is you go to the bathroom.
Oh.
Women, we get in line, right? And you're in there and you're sitting there and you're just kind of like, "So, is this the first time you've seen him? Isn't he amazing? Oh my gosh, who do you hope to hear from? I'm here to hear from my son." And you start sharing that information. Again, everybody's around. It's always a little cue when there's a big group of people at the bathroom,
Yeah.
but that's what I tell people. If you're trying to get information, get it from them at the bathroom, or when you're washing your hands and you're putting on your makeup at the mirror afterwards, and you say, "Oh, I can't believe what he told that person earlier. Oh, that was amazing. It really reminds me of my aunt. That's who I'm here to see. How about you? Who are you here to see?" There's
Whole
information everywhere.
Yeah, again, it kind of makes the whole thing even more spooky when you think they might be having mics or cameras around there.
I think it's much easier than mics or cameras. I really do. I think that, it's all possible, but
Yeah.
I think
You have
it's like
people
magic.
scattered through the
It's-
audience. You sort it out.
Right. Just sitting around. They only need like 10 people. You got a 2-hour show or a 1-hour show. You might even need 5 people. And if you've already read the person, which is really common, when you go to the events, the front 2 rows
Mhm.
are already people who are following them. They've been to multiple events. They've read their books. They're fans. They've had previous readings with them. So all a psychic has to do is get up on stage and say, to somebody in the front row, they just repeat what they already know because they did a reading for them, and it looks amazing. And it looks actual, really factual. The rest of the audience doesn't know that they've been reading for them before, or they have stooges in the audience, or just like I said, they've already gotten some sort of pre-information from somebody just because they rode in the elevator with them, or if you're in the elevator with a group of people and there's 2 people talking, and they say, "Oh my gosh, how was your trip to Hawaii? Was that just the most amazing trip?" And you're like, "I know. When I got home and I found out my daughter's pregnant. Oh my gosh, I haven't told hardly anybody." "Oh, your daughter's pregnant?" "Yes." "Oh my gosh. Oh, did you hear?" And they're having a conversation. You're sitting there just looking at your phone in the back of the elevator, just staring ahead. And then that person gets off and goes and tells the psychic. And you could ride the elevator up and down all day and just catch everybody coming from the parking garage.
Mhm.
Put it this way. When people tell us there's no way they could know, oh my gosh, there's thousands of ways they could know.
Always a way.
There's always a way. So no, I've never had anything that I haven't been able to explain exactly how they figured it out, but it's pretty darn close. For example, yesterday I was having pizza because I love pizza.
Oh yeah.
And I was sitting having pizza, and this woman that I know who's not a skeptic, but she knows I'm really into the psychic world. She says, could you explain this to me? Because my cousin got a reading with this person, and can you explain what happened? And so I said, sure, give me the video. So I sat down with the video, not at the pizza. I sat down with the video, and it was amazingly horrible. It was one of those spirit boxes. Do you know about that phenomena?
No.
Spirit boxes. It's a broken radio that changes frequencies very quick. So you get little snippets of like whatever's on the radio, and they interpret it. They'll say, like, all of a sudden the dial will go on. It'll be a very brief mention of a word, and they'll report that back as if it's coming from the other side. It's just a broken radio.
Oh, gee.
It's a thing in the ghost hunting world. It's called a spirit box.
All right.
And so
I'm gonna get my hands on it.
check it out.
If I can find one.
But this woman, she sat down, and the first thing out of the psychic's mouth was the name of this woman, the grandmother, the one she was wanting to hear from.
Yeah.
And as soon as she said that, the sitter covers her eyes and starts crying. I mean, it was like all it took is just the mention of this woman's name. And then everything else is just generic garbage. So my friend who sent me this video is like, how did that happen? I said, well, she probably, whenever she signed up for the reading, she probably told somebody who she was hoping to hear from. It was simple. And then I went to her Facebook page and put that name in her Facebook page. And there's all these posts talking about the woman, and there's her obituary. They weren't even good hot readers, though. All they had was the person's name, and everything else was, oh, she wants to tell you she loves you, and she wants to tell you that Thanksgiving's coming. Like, she didn't know it was coming. And to have the family together, make sure somebody cooks a lot. It was just generic, whatever, but they did have the person's name. And the only way I think they had it was because she just told them, hoping to hear from my grandmother, and gave him the name.
So, and there are some people, like, because when I've been talking to you, and I've been hearing about Mark more than I've managed to get him down to chat with him, but what you've told me as well, and what Rob told me, is that there are you've managed to kind of infiltrate a lot of these operations, and all over the world, right? Like, I think you might have done something in Australia as well.
We did New Zealand. That was incredible.
New Zealand.
Amazing. The Australians, we keep saying we're going to do some Australian psychics, but we haven't really sat down and did them.
Richard's got them.
They don't seem to be doing a lot of performances because of COVID.
Okay.
We did a New Zealander. We got her good. Oh my gosh.
Can you tell me about that? Can you tell me about that one?
Oh, her name is Jeanette Wilson. She's been around for 20 years or more. And she says that she's in the healing part, but she doesn't say she heals. She says God heals.
Well, of course.
Right. So, and she doesn't diagnose, God diagnoses, or dead doctors that she channels diagnoses you.
Oh,
right. So there you go. Didn't know that, did you? And she had, so she'll channel somebody who's dead, and that person, I guess it gets her out of liability, possibly.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't say it. God told me. Or the doctor dead.
Talk to my balls.
Yeah, so she said, anyway, so her thing was, she was really into ghost photography and ghosts. She really believed in ghosts. And the pictures she would show were like taken on film. I mean, they're so old. There was dust in the picture because, there's dust in pictures.
Oh, those are the spheres, the glowing spheres or something they call them.
Right. And
floating
she called
orbs,
them
floating orbs.
Orbs. So she blew them up. She would get the picture and she blew it up really big. And so it was a big orb. And she said, in the picture, here's her kids. And then it's like Christmas or whatever. And there's all this space. And up in the curtain, you see 2 dots. And she says, that's their grandparents.
Oh,
they're watching. And you're like, how do you know it's a grandparent? How do you know it's not like the next door neighbor? I don't know, And so she was really into ghost photography, really old school. And then she's also anti-vaccine,
Oh,
and she was anti-mammograms, anti-5G, lots of things like that. But you couldn't catch her because when you attended her event and the New Zealanders were going in person and attending her event,
Hmm.
she would go on and on about anti-vaccine stuff. But the thing was recorded, it would make it onto the internet, and there was that part was cut out. So what they noticed is what was going on is her husband ran the camera. And when she got to the part in her thing where she was trying to sell you supplements and stuff like that and anti-vaccine stuff, he would turn off the camera and then restart it again whenever she went back onto her ghosts.
interesting.
Yeah. So what happened is I attended with a couple other New Zealand skeptics and we recorded it all. And then as we recorded it, we got all the anti-vaccine stuff in there because I asked her a question. I said, I'm here in America and we have 100,000 people dead. It was 100,000 people at that time. And we're very scared and we don't know what's going on. We don't have a vaccine. It was before the vaccines. And what can you tell us? And she went on and told me all about how, it was going to end in a few weeks. This is like 2020.
Oh my.
And how it was going to be over. And she could hook me up with somebody who would sell me some stuff that would go in your lungs that would cover up the COVID so you wouldn't get COVID. On and on.
Sounds
So
like
I had
Donald
a video of it.
That
Oh, she
sounds
loved
like
Trump.
Donald Trump. I'm sure
She loved him. It was exactly like she was channeling Donald Trump because she said, it's going to be over in a few weeks. And, the things he says is the things she was saying. She supported him 100% because she says he's getting rid of vaccines, all vaccines, not just COVID. And so what I did is I gave the video to a reporter in New Zealand and he listened to it. And then he interviewed her and he said, what's this about these things you say about anti-vaccines? And she said, that's a lie. I never said anything like that. And he goes, I just watched the video. And she's like, what video? And he, I guess, showed her the video and she was furious. And she emailed me and said, you got to take that down. I'm like, that's fine. I'll take it down. I just made it unlisted. I took it down because I'd already had my, I showed the psychic. I showed the reporter who reported it. And then she tried to run for office and she had a 21-hour, time from the time she announced it, time she got rid of. She said, no, we don't know if her Wikipedia page had anything to do with it. Because on the Wikipedia page, it had all this information about how she was anti-vaccine, anti-mammogram, anti-5G. Oh, I've been visited by a kitty cat.
Oh, hello.
This is Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Wow. Very historic.
He said hello. There's a window right here with a bird feeder, so that's why he's right
that's
there.
nice. I guess he's hungry.
No, he's always going to eat. Yeah.
Time for some chicken. Anyway, but you've done a lot of this and you've campaigned against psychics as well. Why have you made this such a massive mission in your life?
I get that question every once in a while. People think I must have been scammed by them or, it was in the family, but there was nothing. There was no reason. I just found, I found a person who was doing this. It's much like those people who go into the graduate programs and they're interested in biology or whatever, but they don't really know what to do. And then they get a professor who's working on a project and they say, oh, that seems interesting. And then the professor just is like, here, try this, maybe do this. And then you fall into it. It wasn't an area that I was necessarily interested in. It's just I ran into people who were doing this. And then, of course, I met Mark Edward. And then you're like, oh, you get pretty good at it. And every time you start leaving it, you try to back away and do something else. You keep getting pulled back in because somebody writes to you or a new psychic is doing this or somebody challenges me and says, I am not a liar. You're like, oh, really? Let me show you how you are. Or, something else happens. Somebody calls me or there's an interview. And so psychics just became my thing. And I got really good at it because you just do it for a long period of time. But yeah, psychics there was no reason I could have been Bigfoot or could have been UFOs. I mean, I don't like that it bothers me that people are preying on other people's grief. And it's downright lying and it's manipulative. And I just can't stand it. It just makes me, the hair on the back of my neck come up. I can't deal with it the way that, you're grieving or your child's lost, or, feeling like there's presence in your room with you and you're being manipulated. And it just is, it's cruel. But there was no reason I got into it. And I don't think the same with Mark. I don't think he got into it because he had a personal problem with psychics, but he's a mentalist, and mentalism uses a lot of the same methods that psychics use. A lot of the, mentalism is a lot more sophisticated, but it's kind of in the same world. So that's, I think, where he got to it.
So how is mentalism different from being a psychic?
Mentalism is it's a branch of magic. So a mentalist is hired to be a magician that focuses on that mentalism wing, like a wing of magic would be escape artist, a person who does escapes. So it's all magic, but it's just a wing that's kind of a focus. So when Mark does seances, which he does a wonderful, scary Victorian seances, he's really good at that. All the artifacts, and he has the smells and the creaking sounds of boxes opening, and he's got this really patient way he approaches and says, and this bell, or I picked up this rose right outside the house of Houdini's wife, and I picked it fresh, and here it is, and now the petals are all dried up. It's magic, but it's a story. It's a storytelling. So I think mentalism is a little more of a storytelling. And then when you're done, unlike with a psychic, there's no hook. You're not trying to get them come back for another mentalism reading or something like that. So with a psychic, it's
an advertisement.
Yeah. So if you Google a mentalist or you Google a psychic after you've had a really great event, psychic's going to be like, it's a psychic reading, and they don't say it was fake. A mentalist, you can see it says on their website, for more bookings, if you'd like to book me for your next party, as a mentalist. So it's a disclaimer of sorts where they're both kind of like telling a story and trying to get you like guided along. But yeah, it's a huge difference as far as ethics. There's no hook in the mentalism other than maybe, hey, the next time you're having a Halloween party, book me and I will do a seance for you, but a psychic is not like that.
Because I used to watch that TV show called The Mentalist, where there's this mentalist who's helping out the police. I'm sure there's plenty of aspects to that show that they've probably made up or exaggerated or something.
Oh, I'm sure. I still haven't seen it. Mark and I have never seen it, but people always mentioning it.
Check it out. It's quite charming. Like after a couple of seasons, I was like, the real story is in the first episode and the last episode, and in between, like every case and that. So I got bored of it after a point. But it was very interesting indeed.
Yeah.
And there is one. Like most of the psychics, though, I do kind of understand the concepts of cold reading and hot reading, but there's something that I really want to get into, which is a purely Indian thing. It is a primarily Indian thing called Tarpatra. I think that's what it's called. But this is something that I want to dig into because, first of all,
I've never heard of it. What is it?
It's apparently, the process is essentially that these people, you go to them and you give them, I think, just your birth date and your time of birth, some very minimal information, and then they ask you to come back, or they go into a back room or something and they tell you to come back in 15-20 minutes. And apparently they have all these notes written on leaves, on these dried leaves, and they actually read off aspects of your life. So, and people swear by it. In fact, there are a lot of psychics in India, and they have been working at it for an extremely long time. And it's not just psychics, but it's tarot readers, astrologers, fortune tellers of every stripe. I've got like these shopping apps, which will give me a discount coupon for an astrology reading on some other app or something of that sort, or on a call, like 50% off in your first call to astrology.com or something of that sort. And it's so embedded, it's so ingrained in Indian culture that people do not even question it, which is kind of scary, because it is such a blatant con in so many aspects of it. So I really, like, you guys have actually inspired me to try and kind of get into these and get involved and try and get a reading and actually go there myself and see if I can get something done.
Well, it's not. What kind of things do they say? They don't say a specific name, right? It's just a generic.
No, it's just that, like, have you seen this Indian matrimony or Indian
Mhm.
Indian weddings or something? Something was there was
Yeah,
some
I was telling
program
you
on
about that
Netflix.
once. It was interesting. It was like a matchmaker.
Yeah,
thing on
exactly. Now the
Netflix,
matchmaker
right.
keeps going to a fortune teller or some sort of astrologer, and he just shows him a picture of the bride, the prospective bride and the groom, and he just says random things like, "Oh, he'll be very successful. There'll be a great match," or "No, they won't match. They'll have a lot of trouble within 5 years of their wedding," or something of that sort. And then she'll just go on and say, like, I think, my guy has said that you guys are going to be a good match and I want to see how this goes on. And so she kind of takes all her guidance from him. There are people who go to numerologists and get their company names, their own personal names changed because of the fate associated with the numbers that their names come out with. So you have to add an extra A or add an extra I or something of that sort. So there are so many different aspects of it, of these supernatural fortune telling kind of practices that people just kind of get sucked into by the by and just say, let's see what happens. And they're not aware of the different aspects of the reading and how you forget all the misses and remember all the hits, and how your confirmation bias and how you are feeding them information as the conversation goes on. And you can just take things for granted. Like somebody's told, like even my parents, somebody apparently told my grandfather that he would die at a relatively young age in his 60s, which he did. But is that something that, is that a hit that we remembered? But what else did they say? I've always been curious.
So self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe he felt he was going to die young, so he didn't take the health
No,
benefit.
he was actually quite a healthy guy on the whole. It's just that heart disease is kind of genetic in our family. So
heart disease, which is the number one killer of males.
Yeah, and pretty much
And
India
cancer is number two.
And India is probably on the top of the list among most of our neighboring countries. We just seem to have a genetic predisposition to this sort of thing.
So they're just playing the odds,
I guess. But
if you say he's going to die young, is that psychic going to be around 20 years later? Whenever Mark would say, he would make statements, in 3 months, or I see in 6 months. Mark's not going to be around in 6 months.
Absolutely.
So it always sounds like, in 6 months, this is going to happen. But it's not like he's going to be talking to them again on that day. And also, it is a little bit of self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say you're going to have a wonderful match, you guys are great, maybe that means they're going to try a little bit harder. Or if they say that they're going to have an awful match, you said they break up and they don't even.
Sylvia Browne used to do that all the time.
Yeah, Sylvia Browne, the famous Greek vampire, Sylvia Browne. She used to do that kind of stuff. But it's not a real prediction, right? If you say, I think that if you make this switch in your life, you're going to be extremely successful. And then the sitter says, I was thinking of changing jobs. And then the psychic says, yes, that's what I'm talking about. See how I did that?
Yeah.
I didn't say to switch your job. I said, you're thinking about a change and it's going to be successful. The person says, yes, I was thinking about changing jobs. And so they changed jobs and it's a success. You're not going to hear about it if it wasn't, because they're not around. If it was a horrible thing to do and it was really wrong to do, they're not coming back to the psychic. They won't know, but they'll say, this was a great decision. My astrologer said this is even a great decision, and they'll make it into it. So a lot of it is power of the mind that's making these decisions for you and helping you move forward. But you said they're writing on leaves?
Yeah, apparently they're writing on leaves. So I'm very intrigued about this, because if they've got a hack of.
But what are they saying?
Just like
a fortune cookie. Mark says it's like a fortune cookie. Is it like a fortune cookie? But it feels personalized?
It feels very personalized. So it could be just a book of Barnum statements. And who would know the difference? But
exactly. If you've paid money, okay, we all know this fallacy, right? If you have paid money for something, you want it to be real. You don't want to look like a fool that you just thrown good money at something. So you're
Yeah.
much more likely to always try to find the good in it. Like if you buy I don't know, if you buy some object and it falls apart after you've used it a couple times, you might say, yeah, I know it fell apart, but I got two really good uses out of it and I didn't pay that much for it. So it was actually a good buy. You're trying to make yourself, people do
Justify
that. They
it,
rarely go, I bought this piece of junk and I can't get my money back. And boy, was I stupid. You don't
Yeah,
usually say that. It's usually you're trying to find the good out of it so that you can justify your purchase and not look like you made a bad decision.
Indeed. But how do you think that us, say, noobs in this psychic skeptic world should go about maybe getting readings done? How do we pull the threads apart and kind of see where it's at? How do we analyze the information? Basically, how do we get into this field that you've been working in?
Read my book.
Mark says, read my book.
Okay. First
the
step.
audiobook. I think that, it just kind of depends. This leaf reading
Can I
thing.
say something? He already knows the answers. You can spend your whole life chasing a dream.
He says you could chase your dreams for all your whole life.
He already knows.
You already know the answers, Mark says. So I think for the leaf reading thing, that's an interesting little side. I suspect that your birthday and your time at birth and all that is irrelevant to what is going on. It's just a way of making it feel like that's their hook. That's their, with their gimmick. And I suspect that's just a ruse. But if you wanted to take that aspect, you could say, I could go to the same reader over and over and give different birthdays every time I go and see if the reading changes. But I have a feeling that what it is written on those leaves is just a Barnum statement. I have a feeling that's what it is. So I would get several readings and just see and compare the leaves and see if they're just generic statements. Do they give you the leaf? Do they have a reading with you after? Or is it just they hand you the leaf and you walk out? Do they interpret
I think
it
they just read it for you and then you leave. You don't keep anything with you. I think they keep.
You don't get to take the leaf with you?
No, they don't. You don't. I don't
Why
think
not?
that you, because I think they just need it for other people as well.
It's
Well-
too much work to write on all of it.
Wait a second. So they're writing on a leaf
This is of course my information.
and they keep the
can be
leaf.
inaccurate because this is like second or third. Like somebody who had that done for them told me about this a few years ago. And I'm telling you, as far as I can remember, this is kind of stuck in my mind because I'm really intrigued. Now I want to go and check it
I
out.
would have it done. That would be interesting because I'm thinking to myself, why does the leaf need to, if indeed you don't get to keep the leaf, why don't you get to keep the leaf? And
It is
if you give
especially
it to
for you.
somebody else, what do they expect the writing to evaporate? And then it's going to be somebody else's leaf is going to have writing in it? Or are they just handing the leaf to somebody else? I mean,
Well,
is
they
it
just have-
freshly written on
I
or does it look
think-
like it's old?
I think they probably want to make it look like we've had this little bookie about you all our lives and it's been waiting to be read for you. Something of that sort. I think that is the kind of effect that I remember from this. It's getting a little vague, but I'm going to get into this.
Go get it
I'm-
done. Go get it done and write it up. And I would take maybe a pinhole camera or something so you could see if they're not going to let you keep the stuff. I would be interested in how it works. But I suspect you're just giving a name and birthday. I would give you real name and birthday. I don't see why not. Or your real birthday and your real date of birth. I mean, the time of your birth. I would do it. Go in and get it done and then see what the reading says. If it's
I will
something
report back to
specific,
you.
like there is and names people. I can't imagine it really being specific and saying some name.
Yeah,
And
I
some
know.
things
But I
happen.
think-
it's going to be generic like a fortune cookie.
Yeah, but they've mentioned details like you will have one child at such and such, at approximately such and such age, and you'll get married in this year, and you get divorced. In
Are
this
you
year,
sure?
Stuff. That's the kind of stuff.
I
that's
have
on
a
the
feeling
show.
that ain't happening.
But see, I'm sure that things have been exaggerated and gaps have been filled in. So
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
just
he's
need to do
already
this
got it
myself
from
and
the
figure it out.
second person.
Yeah, you're getting it secondhand to maybe
Exactly,
thirdhand. I have a feeling that there is nothing specific about you will have it. If you're a woman, if you're going to have a child, you will have it by a certain age, right? We already know that. Within the next 10 years, you're going to have a child. So I do believe that there are generic things that could be said that seem very specific. Like, for example, Abhijit, I could say, I know you have a story within you that needs to be told. And you've been hoping to get that story out and write it and get it out. And you know you could do that, but you just haven't been able to find it in you. And my Zoltar, who I channel, says you need to get this story out.
Zoltar, he's the same guy who did it for Tom Hanks. I know this guy.
It seems specific because it seems like only, that I've zeroed in on you. But it's just a statement that's true with just about everybody. Or I could
freaky
say,
thing.
Right, there's this accident. This accident. It's a white car. And you really have to be wary of this white car. You're not going to be paying great attention, and it's going to be so close if you're not. And what kind of statement is that? How many? It's a near miss and a white car. What does that mean?
My driver has a white car which is parked in our house.
Ooh. And that might be some danger. Maybe you're going to spill hot coffee on yourself or something,
Maybe he'll spill hot coffee on me.
Or you're going to get your finger caught in the door.
You know what really freaky thing is? The really freaky thing is, I was jamming with my band earlier this evening, and the drummer told me I really should write a book.
And I just told you.
You really are psychic.
So did you see how you made that connection? If he hadn't told you to write a book, you would still be in your mind thinking about it, going, maybe I should.
Yeah.
A statement that's true of almost everybody. And when you make these statements, bold statements, as Mark said, as facts, then you're most likely to.
It's only a question.
And if you didn't react, or if you didn't, I just move on to something else. I just move to something completely different. Or I'm seeing this really interesting flower and it's got an unusual smell and it appears in a place which you're not used to. You just make statements, and then that flower is in a place that you didn't expect. It could be anything. It could be a flower growing from the ground. It could be a flower you see someplace like cut in a vase, or it could be a flower tattoo, or it could be a flower in a drawing on a book you make it into whatever you want because we're humans. We want to relate to each other. And so we're trying to find the social relatability. The humans evolved because we make connections. We make connections when there's no connection. And like they say, the species evolved because we saw a rustling in the bush and we thought it might be a tiger. And, we made that connection. My birds on the bird feeder out here, there's a big piece of glass between me and them. But if I make a movement, they're out of here. And if there was one bird that said, she can't get me because there's a piece of glass right there, that bird has made the assumption. And the next time I have my window open and my cat's on this side and they assume they're going to be eaten. So the ones who survive are the ones who see the pattern. They react to the pattern.
And another thing which I've kind of deduced, I feel, about humanity. One thing, of course, is that everybody is a sucker for a confident person. And there are so many of these completely confident politicians, charlatans, con men, con artists of every stripe across the planet. And the only reason why they have followers is because they speak confidently about their bullshit.
Oh, all human beings. Person who's selling you shoes, person who's selling you a car. Absolutely. There's confidence people everywhere that will make you feel like you're special too. We have people who will tell me, this is funny. So the psychic will come in and they'll read their Facebook page and they'll say, oh, I see this and this. And then the psychic with confidence says, I'm getting somebody named Steve and something about, and it's just what they found on the Facebook page. So if I come to the sitter and say later, we just read your Facebook page back to you. They're like, he read my Facebook page? He was on my Facebook page? That is so cool. Why would he read out of all the thousands of people? He read they feel like they had a celebrity just look at their Facebook page. Like, that's how it works.
Exactly. And there is another reason which I've deduced, I like using that
Mhm.
word, why people get sucked into this and find comfort in these grief vampires, as you so very
Absolutely.
well put it, is that they want to have the world make sense. And especially when it comes to a sense of loss or, being in grief, that is a particularly susceptible time that they really feel that the world is as at its chaotic worst. And they want
Absolutely.
something to make sense and they want something to happen where they can be comforted. And that's where these people come in and just take
Mhm.
horrible advantage of them.
Yeah.
Which
After a war, during the COVID, they want answers. They want easy answers.
exactly.
And it's much easier to think that grandma or your child is in a wonderful, beautiful place and isn't upset at you. It's much easier to think that than not to know or to just continue with the grieving process, which is painful. That could be
Exactly.
if your partner leaves you for another person,
Mm.
right? That hurts like hell. But if you find out, if you think that person left you and now is really regretting it, that feels good.
Absolutely.
So you want to know that you want to hear something. It's much easier it's easier to get through that grieving process if you have
Absolutely.
some feeling that there's life on the other side, or that they're, they forgive you for pulling the plug on them, or forgive you for not taking them seriously when they've said that they were having a heart attack, or you weren't there at the end to say goodbye. Oh, we hear that a lot too.
Yeah,
They
we
feel
all have a lot of guilt associated with people we've lost.
or guilty. Yeah, of course we have that feeling. We're humans. We're not sociopaths or narcissists. That's how you can tell you're not. People sorrow and grief. Some of the grief vampires that I deal with, I think, are definitely sociopaths or narcissists, because I can't imagine when you're when you're reading their Facebook page or you're cheating. I mean, there's nothing in your brain saying maybe I'm really psychic. No, you are. And what they're doing, it's really awful. I know they're having a good laugh after they make you cry. They hang up the phone or whatever. They're like, "Oh, that was great. I wonder if we can get her booked in a couple weeks and replay this back and add a grandma to it. Oh, that's funny. I bet we can get more money out of her." They're laughing at you. They're laughing at these people because they don't see the sympathy. They don't feel like they're helping people. They're like, "Cool, let's make some more money out of it." And
So
it's
despicable.
horrible. It's just really ugly, but I know that's what's going on.
Absolutely. And with, I think most of them, that is definitely the case. But as I was talking with Rob, and I was to some extent talking with Janice when I was talking
Oh,
about
I love Janice Blank. What a good interview you did with her.
Oh, thank you so much. She was fantastic. And it was such an enlightening conversation. And I did mention that at one point of time that there are, like in the videos I've seen of James Randi, where he has actually gone to psychics and fortune tellers, there are some of them who genuinely feel that they are being divinely gifted with this ability, that they can genuinely see what is see into other people's lives and other people's futures, or into their pasts, or into people that they've lost, and they actually genuinely feel that they have that connection. And just like Janice genuinely felt that facilitated communication did work for a short period of time until it was exposed right in front of her, and she came out of that. But there are still a lot of people, and my own friends, and you meet these people at parties left, right, and center, where people say, "Oh, I can read palms." And they're very confident in that. And they think that it's down to a science that they will be able to read your palm and tell you your fortune or your future. And they genuinely believe that they have that ability, that they've picked it up, that they've got it from different people. They don't question themselves.
Absolutely.
They most certainly don't question their ability or the practice on its own. And some of them have gotten things which are uncannily right. I won't divulge anything at this point of time because some of that stuff is actually very personal to some members of my family, but I can probably find ways to be able to justify how they've managed to come to those beliefs, how they've actually said these things, which are incredibly convincing. But at times I find it a little difficult to really be able to understand it. But I think at some level, I feel that it is possible to know such things. Like, for example, if you had another if you might have had another sibling who got lost as a child, or who was given away, or if your sister was actually adopted or something of that sort. Those kinds of things are don't usually happen. They're not very frequent, but they're probably more frequent than one lets on. And
Yes.
who knows where one can find this kind of information, or this kind of just be inspired by this sort of thing. But so that's why I feel very motivated. And I want anybody who's watching that if you're interested in exposing psychics that you have heard of, that you've known of, let's share the details of how to get in touch with these people. Let's go and get genuine readings. Let's just go in with open minds, not so open that your brains fall out, but just go in and really, let's just record these events, and then we can put our heads together and maybe even come up with something like the Great Australian Prediction Project.
I agree. I would love to listen to anybody's recording or video or anything. I love analyzing, but you know what? Most people don't record them. And here's what's going on. Whenever somebody has a reading and then they get this, oh my gosh, he was so accurate. What happens is a lot of it is just manipulation of the moment, and it's wordplay. We do this all the time. When I sit down with a recording somebody's giving me, and I transcribe it. That's always the best, is to transcribe it. You can see exactly what happens. And it's the way the psychic is usually speaking very fast, and they're playing with the words. So, for example, the reading I was just listening to yesterday, they said there's a rose. And then you pause, and then the sitter is like filling it in. Okay, they're trying to find a person whose name is Rose. Oh, my sister's daughter's middle name is Rose. Okay, there's your connection. But a rose could be anything.
Yeah.
Again, a tattoo, a flower in the garden. Somebody grew roses. Somebody's name is Rose. The cat's name is Rose. Somebody's middle name. You're making that connection. It feels specific, but it's not. Or the psychic does a lot of this. Who is Maria? And then you say, that's my mother's name. And they say, yes, that's what she's telling me. And then when you leave the reading, you say, he knew my mother's name was Maria.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. He said,
Yeah.
Who is Maria? It could be a living person, a dead person, your next door neighbor, your cat, your middle name, it could be the name of the city you live on, the street you live on. There's so many connections. You made the connection. And the psychic says, yes, that's what they're telling me with confidence. And you make the connection. And 100% of the time they walk out of that reading saying they knew my mother's name was Maria. And it's because they don't have it recorded, or if they don't look at it, or they have such a mindset that they want it to be real that they're not going to listen to it again. They just say, I know what I heard. She said my mother's name is Maria.
Yeah.
Oh, it happens constantly. And so if you're going to get a reading, you have to record it. And if you're going to record it, you need to be open and honest about how much feedback you're giving, because
Absolutely.
we're always smiling or nodding or looking like we're going to cry. You know, we're giving feedback, crossing our arms, going, oh, rolling your eyes. You're always giving feedback. Plus, they're looking at your body and everything, and they can do a cold reading. I mean, anybody who's watching this video right now could cold read me just from the environment around me. And I could do the same with you. Obviously, you're interested in music and you sit in your chairs a lot. That's why you have these nice, comfortable chairs. I mean, look at the one behind you.
Yeah.
There's these comfortable chairs with these good, solid, construction on them. So you are a person who sits in chairs a lot. So you're probably behind yourself on computers all the time, except when you're playing the drums. You're very musically inclined. And I bet your family was musically inclined, and on and on. These are cold reading. You can tell I like cats. I have weird things behind me. I have 2 children. Look, there's a photo of 2 kids.
Oh.
These are all cold reading tactics. And for a person who, some of these people do believe that they really can read and do psychic stuff because they've gotten so much feedback. And it's not hard. If I was to say, Abhijit, I think you spend a lot of time on computers and you're in front of screens a lot. And there's this music angle in your life, a lot of music. I'm hearing like drums. And you'd say, absolutely right. You're 100% right. And you got the thing about the book.
All they got
Well,
to do
I'm
is
going
watch
to
one of my
convince
videos.
myself after 100 readings or 5 readings, and everybody says how amazing I am. Also,
Right,
we don't like to disappoint people. So
of
if you're
course.
one-on-one with somebody and they tell you how amazing you are, they tell you how amazing you are because they want you, they don't want to say you were a pack of, you know what, and that would have wasted my money. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, that was pretty good. Yeah. That's one of
Mhm.
the best readings I've had this year. It's the only reading I've had this year. But boy, that was really good. We're humans. We don't want to tell them the truth. We want to tell them, well, yeah, that was great. Boy, you told me stuff. That was interesting.
Nice. Which, talking about your surroundings, who is that horrific looking woman, the bust of that person behind you?
Over
Uh,
here.
at the other side.
Are you seeing the imaginary one right here in the curtain? Or are you seeing this one right
Yeah,
here? Look at who's this right here. That's James Randi. That's a James Randi doll. Have you seen these before?
No, I haven't. Oh, look, I can see it now. Oh,
There's
oh,
James
right.
Randi. Oh, let's put his glasses on him, right? He's got handcuffs on,
Oh,
and
hey.
behind him he's got a ace of spades right here. He's got a little ace of spades right in the back,
How cute.
and he has a acupuncture pin.
Oh,
So-
cool.
These are great. There was a limited supply of these, but that's Naomi right there. So
No.
Naomi is just my friend. We hang out, and we talk all the time. She's got a Scottish hat on, a bonnet on.
She looks like
But-
she just told her a really horribly dirty joke. The toilet humor, like, oh.
Yeah, seriously. So I get a lot of attention for her. She's great. We have the best conversation. She just does a lot of listening.
Oh, I'm sure she does. And she looks like a great listener. She's disgusted at every story that you told her.
Right. And then I've got Cat here, Gargoyle back
Wow.
here, over here. And the
Gargoyle.
cat is wondering why is a gargoyle right here.
Oh, nice.
Is a gargoyle somebody
Oh,
gave
very
me.
cool.
And I always have plants and if you're trying to cold read somebody, there's a lot you can get. And humans, even though you and I are on the completely different opposite sides of the continent right now, we have a lot more in common as humans than you would think. A lot of the tropes would be the same for you as they would be for me, even though, I'm female, you're male, different ages, different countries, different.
But we are
Probably have a
humans.
lot in common.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We both have a deep respect for James Randi.
Absolutely. We're both
So,
students.
and for science and for knowledge, people fool themselves into thinking they're helping somebody. They're
Yeah.
not helping them. If you've got somebody who's in grief, they need to get real help. And contacting somebody saying they're contacting the dead is not really helping them. And doing these readings for them saying, oh, maybe you should make the change. That change I see is coming is probably a good thing for you. How is that really helping?
Mm.
I mean, you might change them you might say that man isn't good for you. I think you're still another one that's better to come.
No.
You could be throwing aside a really great person.
You could destroy relationships with that sort of thing.
Yeah. And why?
Exactly.
Why? Just for your power, your sense of power or money or prestige. People who are psychics feel special. They've been gifted,
Yeah,
so why
absolutely.
would you want to throw that away? I want to feel special.
Absolutely. But I'm sorry, we're running a little short on time now. But before we go, I want to
good questions. This has been an interesting discussion. So
no, thank you so much for being on. Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank
I know you're
you.
behind the scenes there. Sorry, what did you say?
He said, thank you.
Oh, it was totally my pleasure. Thank you both for coming on. And you know what? We're going to talk much more deeply about the next thing. And I'll have you on for an interview about that and, that alone, which is the Guerrilla
Talk about-
Skeptics.
Oh, yeah.
Of
Well, Guerrilla
Wikipedia.
Skeptics on Wikipedia. Yeah, we can talk about that another time because the people who are going to be listening to us about the psychics are going to be like, wait, now what? She says, well, I'll put on a different hat and everything. I'll change my flowers and get a different cat.
Sure thing. No one, you've got a lot of hats that you're wearing. That's for sure.
I do have a lot of hats, actually. I do. I love hats.
Yeah. So, but thank you so much, Susan. This has been an interview a long time coming, and I'm really glad I finally managed to get you and Mark on. This
I
is
know. I
enlightening,
love being here. It's
and
so
I
great.
hope the people watching, you get to understand that there is harm to psychics. There is,
Oh,
when you say, what's the harm of getting my palm read, or what's the harm of doing a sort, whatever, getting my tarot cards read or anything of that sort, you're actually promoting a practice that is seriously detrimental to people's mental health, to their wealth, to their time, to their critical thinking skills, to the decisions that they make in their everyday lives. It affects everything.
absolutely.
So
It's not.
if
It's
you
not a
encounter
good thing.
somebody, please share it with me. Susan, where can they find you? Where can people get in touch with you?
Easiest place to find me is on Facebook. I'm on all the time. Send me a private message. I'm always looking at that. I love that they contact me on Facebook. It's easy for me to manage, but you can get a hold of me at my email, which is Susan Gerbic at gmail.com or yahoo.com. Twitter for a while. We'll see how long that goes. But
Yeah.
the best conversations are on Facebook. It's easy to manage. I like the private messages because then you can see the whole conversations going far back on there. And Mark has, so you can get a hold of him on Facebook, or you could find him on email, which is markmindreader@gmail.com, or he has a website called themarkedward.com, and that's his website where you can see all his magic and mentalism. He's written many books on mentalism and seance theory and telling stories. He's a big collection of books he's written. You can also learn more about him by reading his Wikipedia page, Mark Edward. No S on the end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Get
I'm
his
going to put
book.
all those links in the description so that
Okay,
everyone
great.
can get access to them.
It's great to see you, and it's really great to see you. It's like, I hope I'll be able to see you every year. Nice.
I don't know about every
You know,
year.
every year.
I'd probably have to start shacking up in a hut outside the casino. Like,
You have such a wonderful voice. You could do voiceovers for
I bring it
people
on.
outside.
Let anybody who needs voiceovers, I can put on a fake American accent. But thank you so much, Susan. Thanks again for coming on. Thank you, Mark. I will definitely have you on for another interview very soon. And thank you, everybody, for watching Rationable Interviews once again and listening to it. Thank you and bye-bye. If you want more information, I'm going to be putting this up on the Rationable podcast, which you can find on all podcast platforms. You can come to berationable.com. That's spelled exactly how you think it is, unless you're really bad at spelling. And you can also check out the Rationable YouTube channel, which is just Rationable. So look me up if you prefer watching this in video, and I'll put the transcript up as soon as I put in the podcast episode. So thank you all. Subscribe, share, like, and I will see you guys next time. Catch you later.